Good afternoon, I'm Lucy Burns and these are today's top stories from Mersey News Live in our final news roundup of 2023. Manchester Crown Court has been hearing claims that the man accused of murdering 9-year-old Olivia Pratt-Corbell in her Liverpool home was lying in wait for his intended target. Thomas Cashman, who's 34, denies being the gunman who chased a convicted burglar into the house in which Olivia was shot in Dovecot in August. The prosecution's been outlining its case and discussing the moment bullets were fired at the property owned by the little girl's mum. Eurovision Song Contest tickets went on sale this afternoon but sold out in just 34 minutes. Many disappointed fans have blasted the Ticketmaster website on social media with reports that the server went down before the tickets became available at 12 o'clock. Kira Bolton has more.
The largely anticipated Eurovision Song Contest will come to Liverpool in May, but many fans were unable to get tickets after they went on sale at noon today. The tickets for the grand final on the 13th of May were sold out within 34 minutes, and the Eurovision Twitter account confirmed that demand was still extremely high for the remaining tickets to the other events.
I didn't get tickets for Eurovision. I did wait an hour in the queue with no luck. I think because the site crashed before the tickets even went on sale, so that pushed a lot of people to the back of the queue that had been waiting there for ages. So I think a lot of people were unsuccessful with getting tickets.
The government has allocated 3,000 discounted tickets to Ukrainians to make sure they have a front row seat to the contest that should have been hosted by their war-torn nation.
Ukrainians will have to pay, I think, £20 for each ticket, but obviously this is very much reduced price of the original ticket. And in that way they will be able to take part.
For those who were unsuccessful in their pursuit of Eurovision tickets, the city will be hosting Eurofest, a 2-week festival that features an assortment of events and artistic spectacles.
So one of the things that stands out to me is one of the events is called the Blue and Yellow Submarine Parade, which is an outdoor underwater sea disco. Now get your head around that. It's absolutely fantastic by the sounds of it.
Ukraine should have hosted the contest this summer after winning last year, and Liverpool City Council wants to make sure that Ukrainian representation in all celebrations is a priority.
Well, we're just a city of sanctuary, aren't we? We're very supportive of others. We really care about social justice, but we're very good at throwing a party as well. So in terms of personality, this is a bit of us, not only doing it on behalf of other people, but the actual contest itself. And, you know, that's never been done before, having to do it on behalf of somebody else. So our passion for social justice means we're so supportive of, you know, the people of Ukraine and the resilience that they're showing and displaying. And what a privilege to be able to support them.
I'm Kira Bolton for Mersey News Live.
Gabe's Law is to get a second reading in Parliament. The law is named after Liverpool teenager Gabe Santa, who fell to his death from the Hanover Street car park 2 years ago. The private member's bill calls for an increase in the minimum height of car park barriers. Ryan Everett reports.
Q Park Hanover Street is a secure car park conveniently located next to a range of hotels and Liverpool One shopping centre. Well, this is according to the Q Park website. One tragedy put that statement into question, a question that will be raised for the second time in Parliament by MP for Garston and Riverside, Maria Eagle. Referred to as Gabe's Law, the motion looks to implement an increase to the minimum size car park barriers are.
Following Gabriel's inquest, that the building regulation requirements for the height of barriers set a minimum height for guarding the rooftop of only 1.1 metres, just around 3 feet. That is too low to stop anyone from accidentally falling. It's certainly too low to stop anyone determined to jump.
This is to prevent incidents similar to that of October 2020, where 15-year-old Gabriel Santa died after falling from the top floor of Q Park located on Hanover Street. The inquest provided that this could have been completely avoidable in what was a clear act of negligence.
As you can see, we are here at the very top of the Mount Pleasant car park. Now, as we said, this is the very top, and as you can see here, all we have is literally a piece of concrete. Anyone can fall over that, anyone at any age. So maybe this just highlights why it is necessary, why a law such as this should be passed.
According to media reports, over 17 people died as a result of falling from car parks in 2022. But on the 17th of March this year, when MPs will hear the motion for the second time, the hope is that of new regulations to ensure this kind of tragedy won't strike again. Ryan Everett, Mersey News Live.
Liverpool's LGBT+ community have hit out at what they describe as the homophobic backlash to gay relationships portrayed in the hit TV series The Last of Us. They say the social media outcry demonstrates there's still a long way to go before we have an inclusive society. Brandon Sutton has been following the story.
HBO's latest hit series The Last of Us has been highly praised by critics, but episode 3 received lots of pushback featuring a gay relationship. Two representatives of Liverpool LGBT+ gave their thoughts.
Redefine notions of what people are.
The fact that the number of reviews for that episode is almost twice, maybe 3 times as much as the amount of reviews for other episodes. It sort of just, it makes me feel like a lot of the people who commented might have not even seen it and were just like, oh, it shows a gay relationships, that's disgusting.
As the search for the 2023 Tim Hetherington Fellowship begins, LJMU students are being given the chance to work on the editorial team for Index on Censorship. The fellowship was named after the Merseyside photojournalist and filmmaker Tim Hetherington, who was killed in a mortar attack while covering the Libyan civil war. Rachel Cowan has been chatting to the current fellow, Francis Clark.
In a unique partnership with Index on Censorship and the Tim Hetherington Fellowship, Liverpool John Moores University is offering the opportunity to join the Index on Censorship editorial team for a year. The fellowship is an annual position named after photojournalist and filmmaker Tim Hetherington, who was killed in 2011 whilst covering the Libyan civil war. Current Tim Hetherington Fellow, Francis Clark, shares his advice for students looking to apply.
Keep an eye on what's going on around the world. And obviously look on our websites, have a good dig through that just to see what we write about, the kind of issues, again, not just write about, but also campaign on as well. So it's not just a website and a magazine where we just, write about things from around the world. We actually do a lot of stuff in this country as well.
Francis decided to go back to university as a mature student to get his master's in journalism post-pandemic, which is when he first heard about the Tim Hetherington Fellowship and decided to apply.
I'd always wanted to study journalism, as I say. I'm a political nut. I love current affairs. And I just kind of realised that if I didn't do it now, then I might never do it. So that's why I decided to go back to university, and then lo and behold, I didn't realise, but at John Moores, they had the fellowship. So it just sounded like pretty perfect to try and apply for. And yeah, luckily I got it, really.
The fellowship allows one graduate to report on national and international free expression issues. Rachel Cowan, Mersey News Live.
A local artist is showcasing his work at the AD Hub Gallery on the Wirral. He has been based in Hub Studio for 5 years, which is situated in the Baltic Triangle. He showcases various styles of artwork throughout his exhibition. Harriet Beldeboss has more.
Local artist Steve Bailey picked up his brush after retirement. His latest exhibition, An Eclectic Mix, will be one of the first artist exhibitions at the AD Hub Gallery.
I sort of came to it late, really, in about 2016. Prior to that, I was an accountant and a financial director of quite a large printing group. And when I retired early, I had a couple of friends who had been lifelong artists, and I'd always gone to galleries with them and things, and they encouraged me.
The exhibition includes art from all different styles, from oil paintings to acrylic. This is why Steve has called the exhibition An Eclectic Mix.
Because I took it up when I took early retirement, it means relaxation and enjoyment. Exhibiting in galleries, which is great. If you sell a picture, that's a bonus.
This exhibition will run from now until March 31st, and in the future, Steve plans to continue with exhibitions and try and enter some prestigious competitions.
A planning application has been put forward to Liverpool City Council to update Hollywood Bowl in Liverpool Shopping Park on Edge Lane. Local residents hope that promises of a new bowling alley will be fulfilled after failed plans of a new cinema being built in the retail park. Derwent Development Management Limited are planning on investing £11 million into building a new leisure outlet, 2 new drive-through outlets and a car dealership. From the horses to the roulette table, gambling is all around us. The pastime can turn into a serious addiction that threatens many parts of people's lives. However, new regulation is expected in the sector. Oliver Nolan-Davis reports.
The government is expected to introduce new gambling legislation. This will be the first significant change of laws in the sector since 2005, a year before the first smartphone. I spoke to Charlie Wilson about the importance of the rule changes.
Scene and landscape has completely changed in that time. So in the past it used to be that it'd all be land-based, so you'd go somewhere, you'd be around other people, you'd do your gambling and then you'd go home. Whereas now you've got full access to a whole range of gambling products from your pocket, 24 hours a day. You can do that in any setting. So the previous legislation that was made in 2005, there's no way that could have anticipated that.
The white paper has already been pushed back multiple times, with the key talking points being focused around statutory rather than voluntary levy for gambling firms and affordability checks for gamblers.
So with a statutory levy, absolutely yes, that's what we should be doing. There's a couple of caveats to that though. It's got to be set at the right level, it's got to be free from industry influence. Affordability checks, again, absolutely yes, but they have to be set at the right level because harms can still occur when people are spending relatively small amounts on gambling. And then it's a question of, okay, we've done that affordability check, what are we going to do with that? Are we just going to say, oh, you failed this affordability check, do you still want to place this bet? And that doesn't do anything. Whereas if it's more all-encompassing and we actually put an intervention into place at that point, then that's brilliant, that's what we want.
Shirley and Steve, how have you found this year?
Entertaining, interesting, definitely. I think though it's really worth remembering that you were what I call the COVID cohort, that you started off your university careers here online, and you didn't even have face-to-face in the first year, did you? You were just stuck at home. And I think that means that what you've achieved in effectively 2 years since that first year has been remarkable. You came into doing the practical stuff a year late, you've had to pick up and catch up all the way through. So what you've done, you should be extremely proud of. We hope you're going to take some of the skills forward into whatever you go on to do in the future, but you've been a joy to teach. I'm going to miss you. I don't know about you, Steve.
Definitely. There's not much that gets me up at 6:30 on a Tuesday morning with the spring in my step, but coming into the Newsdays does. We're going to miss you all, aren't we, Shirley?
Yeah, we say the same every year, but you have been just a bit special.
That's not quite all from us. We might be signing off on our last news bulletin from the 2023 Mersey News Live team, but before we leave you, let's take a look back at our year in news stories with Connie Harpham.
We've reached our final stretch here at LJMU, and with that, our final news day. After meeting each other for the first time on Zoom and struggling through a pandemic, having our final year return to normality has been an enjoyable experience for us all. It has been a year of financial struggle for many though. There have been strikes, shootings and the refugee crisis. However, it's not all been doom and gloom, with a famous singing competition coming right to our doorstep.
With Liverpool being announced as the host of Eurovision 2023, we asked the public on a very windy day their opinion on Liverpool being host.
I'm working in the theatre this week in Liverpool, and it's such a nice place, and I just think lots of people are going to get to experience Liverpool, and hopefully it'll bring in lots of money for the city as well. So
I mean, it's good for the city. I can see the positives of it, but it doesn't interest me really.
Hotels are also increasing their pricing for Eurovision weekend.
Not a good advert for the people of Liverpool, because we all know all over the place people from Liverpool are warm and friendly and everything. So yeah, I'm disgusted with them. It's just greed.
I mean, there's people from all over the country that might not be able to afford that hotel room price, but they still want to be involved in what's going on, and so I do think to an extent it is unfair that there's people who maybe can't afford that are having to now pay that price.
Safety initiatives for women have been a big focus for the city this year, with the shootings of Olivia Pratt-Corbell, Ashley Dale and Elle Edwards, alongside the memorial for Ava White. Matt Markey and Natalia Luke secured an exclusive interview with Crime Commissioner Emily Spurrell, head of the Safer Streets campaign.
and we're also doing work with our bus drivers and our other kind of transport partners to create bystanders, so actually everybody's willing to intervene and create those safe spaces. So I think it's just about saying we have to be relentless around this, because these are big issues, and Merseyside does have some real challenges, but we have to kind of keep trying and doing all of these campaigns that we're doing to tackle all these different issues.
Nurses, lecturers and trained staff are among the many who took industrial action this year. LJMU reporters took to the streets to join the pickets and find how this affected Liverpool people.
There was hardly any trains on, so it was really overcrowded. And I'm pregnant with 2 little girls, so it was a bit chaotic and quite scary actually.
The strike itself, I mean, I was a strong union man, but this is going a bit too far now, I think. It's really upsetting the public.
So next week I had a school reunion, and now there's a train strike on that day, so I can't go anymore.
NHS staff across England and Wales have received an average pay rise of 4.75%, with the lowest paid being guaranteed a rise of at least £1,400. Ministers say that's as much as they can afford, and that the rise is honouring in full the recommendations of the NHS pay review body.
We're understaffed, we're underpaid and we're undervalued, and there isn't enough nurses coming in the door to cover those that are actually leaving the NHS because of poor working conditions.
Charlotte Hooper, a dementia nurse for 41 years with the NHS, doesn't believe that the nurses are striking for the right reasons.
Are the government doing enough? I'm actually not sure I can blame the government. I think I blame the NHS. And I think what they're asking for is ethically and morally wrong. I think they're doing it for selfish reasons.
The priority will be to maintain urgent and emergency services, such as A&E and emergency surgeries. But strikes by nurses will inevitably limit what care the NHS can provide. With nothing there, Connie Harpham, LJMU Journalism. The cost of living has reached an all-time high, with food inflation hitting 15% in the last year. Natalia looked into the effects this has had on Merseyside food banks.
With the increase in gas prices, many of us are still fighting the want to switch on the heating. However, research from Which now suggests that millions of people are skipping meals to tackle the costs of food inflation. Compassion Acts are a charity aiming to reduce poverty in Southport and Formby, and have been trying to help people through their multiple food banks.
Our pantry attendances have doubled in the last month. Our requests for pantry access has gone up 3 times as much as we were doing earlier in the summer, and our food bank use is on the rise.
With an increase of 46% since April and a large amount of new users, food bank donations are struggling to meet the demand. While this may seem like a lot of food, it is barely enough to feed all of their users.
We have noticed a dip in donations. I think most charities and certainly food banks all over the country are seeing the same thing. Understandably, our donors are, affected by the increased cost of everything as well. And so people, are cutting back on things, and one of those things is quite often charitable giving. So we're getting slightly less food in. At the same time, we're needing more food to give out, so we're having to buy more food. And the financial donations that we would usually use to buy that food are, again, down on what they have been in the past.
As food prices and bills continue to rise into winter, the need for food banks are sure to follow.
The refugee crisis has been a constant story across our Newsdays this year. Jeremy Corbyn recently visited St George's Hall to welcome refugees following the attack in Knowsley.
If you allow the far right to gain any traction, then what happens is that blame culture gets worse and worse. The racism of our society gets worse and worse. So we're here today to give a message that we will not compromise with the far right. We won't deal with the far right. We don't accept their arguments. The only argument we accept is one of unity of peoples in work, out of work, in housing, homeless, refugees, asylum seekers, or any other group within our society.
A year on from the invasion of Ukraine, Kira Bolton interviewed war refugee Paul Cribley about Putin's future plans for the conflict.
So when we say, what does Putin believe? I mean, the point is moot. He's killing people anyway. But there are 2 aspects to that kind of statement. One is to demonstrate to the public and to make a propaganda statement. But there is a very real sense within Russian culture that Ukraine was always Russian, and they shouldn't have the right to self-determination. And in fact, that the idea of Ukrainian independence is laughable.
Sadly, crime tends to make the news headlines, and we had exclusive access to those who lead the fight against crime across Merseyside.
Merseyside Police Chief Constable Serena Kennedy delivered her annual lecture at Liverpool John Moores University last Thursday. The Chief Constable was joined by her deputy, Ian Critchley, and Merseyside Police and Crime Commissioner Emily Spurrell, as well as officers from neighbouring forces who had gathered to listen to her explain why a back-to-basics approach no longer meets modern challenges faced by the police.
Yeah, I mean, the HMI, Andy Cook, is using the phrase back to basics, and the reason he's using that phrase is he's saying that, you know, communities don't understand anymore kind of what the mission of policing is. So I understand why he makes it. The bit that Andy and I do agree on is that policing has to deliver excellence in the basics, and that's the phrase that I prefer. The reason I don't like the phrase back to basics is I don't think it explains or helps the community understand the challenges and the complexity of what policing is dealing with. So to answer your question in relation to is it frustrating? Yes, it can be frustrating, which is probably one of the reasons why I'm doing the lecture tonight, because what I want to say is our communities absolutely should get excellence in the basics, but policing has got to take responsibility for explaining to our communities what we are dealing with.
Serena Kennedy's first year as Merseyside's first female Chief Constable has been filled with challenges. In the last year, Liverpool has been shaken by a number of high-profile incidents, such as a terrorist attack outside the Women's Hospital, the murder of 12-year-old Ava White in a city centre stabbing, and the shooting of 9-year-old Olivia Pratt-Corbell. While tackling major crime remains a top priority, the Chief Constable assured the public that her officers remain at the front line of safeguarding the vulnerable, following a decade that has seen a 791% increase in regional domestic abuse offences.
Have we had to restructure the way in which Merseyside Police we deliver our services? Yes, we absolutely have. You know, our investment has to be into our teams around protecting vulnerable people to deal with those crimes that didn't used to kind of be reported to us, and likewise for fraud and cybercrime.
Deputy Chief Constable Ian Critchley echoed the force's commitment to protecting those in need.
There is a challenge there, but I must give confidence to victims that please ring us, please contact us, don't suffer in silence. There will be an immediate emergency response when we are needed.
The Chief Constable rounded off her lecture by describing the pride she has in Merseyside's police force.
I am proud of the work that is being done in Merseyside, focusing on inclusion to improve the trust and confidence of all of our communities in Merseyside Police, but also of our own staff.
Outside the newsroom, LGMU students found themselves facing the challenge of demonstrating a live news day to the university's Board of Governors. Good evening, I'm Connie Harpham and welcome to a special edition of Mersey News Live. Charity events are often covered on our news days, and Bella Cox showed us that Movember was no different.
It's money for a good cause really, men's mental health. I know everyone in the rugby team struggled at some point. One of them we've had, Mitch, has dyed his hair cyan, as cyan's the colour of the club. One of the main targets is the whole committee are going to do a 3-peak challenge, where we do the 3 peaks of the UK. I think everyone in the club knows that we're all here for each other. We've got coaches, we've got a strong committee, and we're currently setting up a father-son allocation where a senior gets a fresher as their father/son, and that's someone you can speak to about anything, whether it's rugby or off the pitch problems. The rugby's Instagram's got a link to the Movember page where you can donate directly to the club.
Movember isn't just about growing a moustache. For those who lack in facial hair, here in Liverpool, Mo Running are hosting a handful of running events you can take part in to help raise money and awareness.
Mo Running is a series of 5k, 10k, half marathons now, and kids 1.5k runs that support Movember. It's trying to get as many people out there running, getting fit, staying healthy, being part of a great running event wherever they are across the country. And the second one is obviously really supporting the charity Movember and bringing more awareness to it and helping people sort of see it, learn about it, and get men talking a lot more as well.
This has been Bella Cox, Mersey News Live.
And then there was our bus walker, another local who's raising money for charity and has just been awarded a BEM for his efforts.
It's going okay. If it could, my head's gone a bit and my knees aren't the best, but other than that, it's going fantastic. Without the support of me and the boss bus walkers, we'd be struggling, but it's going okay. One more day.
We always made sure to include the top sports stories in our Newsdays as well, so we decided to hand over to Matt Markey for the highlights.
So I think a big thing was definitely the World Cup in January. So just before Christmas, at the back end of last year, I covered Index on Censorship Magazine's roundtable discussion about the issues surrounding the World Cup being hosted in Qatar. And that was interesting because we got to highlight some of those problems and talk about it in more detail going into the World Cup, as well as just the football side of it.
And finally, we caught up with everyone on the news team to ask them what their highlights were of the year.
I've enjoyed the Newsdays actually. Yeah, I've enjoyed this something different every day, innit? And yeah, I've enjoyed working on my own stories that I'm interested in. So yeah, I've really enjoyed it.
Nice.
Yeah, it's been an experience. It's been really good. We've all learnt loads, but stressful at times. But I think we've all done really well.
Amazing. And then your highlight of your time here doing the Newsdays?
My highlight is Alan Humphreys, because how can he not be my highlight?
I've actually ended up loving them in the end. It's probably my favourite part of the whole module. I mean, the whole year.
All right, and then your highlight from all of the Newsdays?
Probably going on report, going to some of the strikes and just covering stories at the time.
So that's it from all of us at the Mersey News Live team of 2023. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.